except where them hands, where them holes, where them throws, you know what I'm saying? Cecil.
So this is an article from Mommy Underground about when it's okay to quit something. And you know, the martial arts is one of those things that a lot of people feel like you should just do for life and you should never quit. I mean, I feel that way. I feel like it's something that you should do because it's beneficial practice. But you know, if I want to be honest, yeah, there's a time to quit, and we do live in a society that acts like you can't ever quit anything. Like if you give up on something, even no matter how pointless you feel it is to you, you know, then there's something wrong with you if you decide to quit. And honestly, if you feel like the martial arts are pointless to you after you've started, I mean, I feel like I'll let you off the hook. I feel like you should quit. I may think you're making a mistake, but I also feel like that's your freedom. So, but when we're talking about kids, yeah, you want them to learn how to stick with some stuff, but you do also want them to learn how to say no. So I'm going to read this article here, and then I'm just going to put it in terms of at what ranks I think you should just let them quit if they want to quit. Because that is I'll tell you the ranks I think when they really give them an honest try. So this article is on Mommy Underground, and it says, in a culture of pressure and productivity, kids need to learn when to quit. Now more than ever, we're living in a time of pressure where a push for productivity often leads to burnout. And then there's the unspoken rule in our culture that seems to lead us to believe that giving up on something means failing at it. But that's not the case. Quitting does not need to be looked upon in a negative light, and it's something that we must refrain from our children's sake. Like, you know, one thing that would be positive to quit, of course, are bad relationships, toxic work environments, toxic school environments. Those are things to leave and quit. Walk into any bookstore or go online on social media, and you will be met with an avalanche of resources on self-help, self-improvement, career success, and meeting your potential. We've somehow developed into a culture that frowns upon failure, that discourages quitting or shifting gears, that tells us to learn and just deal with it, balancing it all, despite how tired, stressed out, or overwhelmed we may be. And now this can be a danger when it comes to martial arts, because if you're tired, overwhelmed, and stressed out doing something like that, it can definitely lead to injury when you're talking about something that can be physical. We're often encouraged that following our dreams can be our hobby after our real work is done. Real work that we often dislike and that turns us into people that we don't recognize. You know, we do have to stick with what we call our real jobs, our real work, because, I mean, those pay the bills. I have my quote unquote real job I have to do too. But I find myself blending the two more and more, especially in an online world where skills from one just end up transferring into the other. So, we all know our kids watch our every move. They see our stress, our frustration. They see us push through every situation because quitting is not an option. Quitting is looked upon as a failure of sorts, giving up or being lazy instead of staying the course to be resilient and learn to deal with disappointment. But this approach to life teaches our kids a viewpoint that may lead to unhappiness, stress, and even worse, may lead them into bad situations in which they accept circumstances that are not best for them. That's what I was saying earlier. Leave a toxic environment. You're not quitting a toxic environment, you are leaving a toxic environment. Yes, trying to be your best, trying your best is an important lesson to teach our children, as is persistence and a good work ethic. But so is allowing our children to grow up knowing that they have control over their dreams, their goals, and their futures by teaching them it's okay to quit sometimes. So just to prove, I guess she wrote, you know, she's going to appeal to a higher authority. And I'm glad that this psychology professor chimed in on this issue as well, because this is something I've noticed as I've gotten older. Psychology professor Carsten Roche has found that sticking with something unattainable or that makes us miserable can lead to mental health issues like depression and physical ones like inflammation, compromised immunity, and other stress-related conditions. I know I said a few videos back that I was the king of especially before I got the first black belt, trying to do that and work and stay current in job skills and raise a family. I definitely went through all of those Because I used to be, every year I used to get some type of really bad cold, probably a pneumonia every year, which is probably why I fear the coronavirus so much, because I know what a really bad cold can do to your respiratory system. Because one time I got so sick I couldn't even lay down. I had to sit up in order to be able to breathe. And by the time I got to the doctor's office, the doctor was like, if you didn't have your immune system, you would have been dead. Because I described what was happening, and then he like looked at me and the nose and stuff. He was like, you are lucky that your body fought this thing off because you were on your way to dying. Those are pretty much his exact words, just with a different accent. Roche, along with researcher Greg Miller, has studied the effects of what happens when we refuse to quit or change direction because we feel like quitting is a character flaw. It is more important, they say, to help our children figure out what they truly want to do in life, and if their goals and ambitions change, that it's okay to try something different. Allowing our children to quit when they don't enjoy something empowers them to explore different areas of focus and learn new things. It teaches them that being successful in our pursuits, whether learning skills or hobbies or in our work as in career as adults, can only really be successful if we are content and fulfilled by what we do. Now, the only thing I disagree with is letting them quit to a degree where, because this is what happened with my children, with both of them actually. So I allowed them to try some things. I allowed them to try, like, it was different with each one of them. And they tried one thing and they quit, and they tried another thing and then they quit. And then after a while, I was like, no, you got to stick with something. And I asked them both, and they just fell right into the trap too. What they honestly wanted to do at the time, and I think they were both around like 5, 6, or 7. And honestly, they both said they just wanted to play and chill and just watch cartoons on a Saturday morning. Which is fine, but I say, I'm not going to let you do that. I understand you're not bad for wanting to do that, but I'm not going to let you do that. And I didn't. So I told them that they had to stick with the martial arts. It's a black belt. And if you get a black belt from me, then after that you can stop and you can do whatever you want. Okay? And I said, plus by the time you're old enough to get a black belt, you'll be able to protect yourself, and then you know enough to decide whether this is for you or not. And they both got the black belt. And they both, for a while, they moved on to other things. My daughter still hasn't come back. My son ended up coming back and taught as an instructor for a while until COVID came and just took that out. So he was like part-time. You know how when you have a part-time job, but you work like 30 plus hours a week, but you part-time, that type of deal. So basically, he was really professional instructor. Just wasn't full-time. Adults who dislike their jobs may still do them well, but there will always be a negative effect on health, relationships, and self-worth if they don't feel like they're doing something meaningful to them. Parents can help by giving kids options when making choices about clubs, sports, or other activities. If they try something for a reasonable amount of time and dislike it, sit with your child and make a list of pros and cons about that activity and let them be a part of the decision to quit. Then offer options for different activities they can try. For example, if they love music but did not enjoy piano lessons, give them the opportunity to choose another instrument. And this is something I think definitely directly carries over to the martial arts. Because a lot of times you'll get kids that like martial arts, but they may not like that art or that instructor. Sit down and find out why they don't like that art or that instructor. Now, if they don't like that instructor because that instructor has rules and they just don't want to follow any, like, even though I used to talk about this a lot, I'm going to start talking about this again. Like, for example, with me, I don't do the yes sir, no sir thing. I don't. I don't necessarily feel like it's directly beneficial because they're civilians and not military. But guess what? I don't have a problem with it. And people have like critiqued other teachers that are more, military like what they're teaching, and then they come to me like, you don't do that, what you think of that? I'm like, that's the rules of their house. And I actually do see value in it, but I don't do that. That's just me. And that's because I ran into negative experiences doing that, because there are some people who are just They're so sensitive, right? When you get to be an adult, you'll meet these people. If you say yes, sir, or no, sir to them, they think you're calling them old. And they think that you are insulting them. And they are offended by you saying yes, sir, yes, ma'am, no, sir, no, ma'am. They get, I'm like, what? 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 But you got to be able to adapt. You can't, it's not your way all the time. Now, fortunately, since I'm up in the sir, ma'am age now, I don't run into that much. But there are people that hate that. It's the weirdest thing. It's the weirdest thing. That's they're uncomfortable with it, and so you have to use first names with them. Now, I don't let my children or my students call me by my first name. I don't do that. They have to put. You can use my first name. They'll call me Mr. Cecil. Something like that. They have to put a Mr. in front of it. That's fine. And and I do that because I don't enforce that because I know they say martial arts, war arts, and military arts, but my paradigm is I'm adapting you for civilian life. Okay. And if the other people would say, well, no, these civilians could use some military training, I don't have a problem with that either. I really don't. I don't. And I do not speak down on people who do. And when people want to speak down on people who do that around me, I check them. I'm like, no. That's how they want to run their program. You don't like it, don't go there. If you don't like my program, don't come here. Especially in this area where I live in. It's so many schools. It's just like we got park and rec schools, you got private schools. During COVID, you got people teaching online. You got to be able to find something to float your boat if you're in the D.C. area. I'm just saying. If you can't find a decent martial arts school in the D.C. area, I can't speak for any other areas. In D.C., Maryland, and Northern Virginia, if you can't find a martial arts school that you like, even got people teaching out of churches, people teaching out of their basements, if you can't find a decent martial arts instructor here, then it's you. For real. Anyway. And if they dislike all those lessons or playing an instrument altogether, they could try related activities such as joining a theater group. Like I said, when it came to my kids, I was just like, look, y'all not liking anything, so you're going to do martial arts, and you're going to do it, and I'm doing it so we can spend time together. See, now that's another thing. If you really want your children to be involved in something, maybe you have to get involved with it, and they'll do it so they can spend time with you. Because that's all it was ultimately about anyway. I had a good reason to do something I like and for them to spend time with it, but I did give them an end date. I said, if you don't want to do it after this part, daddy's in it for life, but if you don't want to, that's fine. And then, see, this is the thing about having them stick with stuff. Because they've ended up relying on their martial arts skills to keep them literally alive and free from being beat up. So, there you go. Obviously, our children aren't going to be able to quit certain things they dislike, academic subjects in school, for example, and there may be limitations and boundaries necessary to your family's routine that prevent certain choices. But when it comes to learning new skills through extracurricular activities or participating in sports, there's always room to acknowledge that something just didn't work out and move on to something that may really fulfill them. I agree. Give them concrete examples of the benefits of switching gears. Maybe you changed jobs at one point and found that one that you really love. And there are many stories of famous figures who found success, even greatness, by following a different path than originally intended. And I'm not a great famous figure, but that happened with me too, because I started off in music and hip hop and I was passionate about that. And it seems like I'm just going to end up here. The bottom line is to encourage our children to recognize when something is not a good fit for them and help them to discover who they are by acknowledging when something is not working out. The acceptance of quitting is also very beneficial as they grow and find themselves in bad situations we wouldn't want them to stay in simply because our culture equates quitting with failure. Shifting gears is essential for self-improvement. The real kind of improvement that teaches us to follow our hearts and minds instead of accepting a situation that is not working. Now that I can definitely agree with. You don't want them to learn like, oh, I just can't quit. Like I said, when it's an abusive relationship. Oh, I can't quit. When it's like a toxic work environment where they want them to do things that are illegal and immoral. though that's when it's time to quit. You know, or if you're going about a goal totally the wrong way and you're abusing yourself, maybe you want to stop. If this goal is not really going to bring you a lot of things that's really beneficial, you can like my grandmother used to say, God rest her soul, you can drive yourself crazy, baby. You can drive yourself crazy trying to attain some things that are just not going to happen. You know, this is the thing. If it's because there are goals that truly seem unattainable and that may be unattainable for you at the time, but guess what? Things can change. If you pray on it and ask God if it's a goal for you, then then keep going with it. But there are things that you can try for a while, and this is a good thing. Well, this is kind of a hard thing to teach children, I guess. But just because something didn't necessarily work out for you, that doesn't mean you didn't learn from that experience. Like with me, I didn't end up staying in the Marine Corps for a full 20. I didn't. They said bye. You know. But there's a lot of stuff I learned in the Marine Corps I find myself using sometimes. Like I found, like on my day job the other day, the way that you call out letters and numbers, I was using that because the other guy was military, and we had to set up some stuff. We had to set up some accounts with different letters and numbers, and we were using the military nomenclature back and forth. He understood what I was doing. I understood him, and it worked. I mean, it worked. We got it banged out like that. So that was something that was beneficial, even though if you were to look at it in isolation, you'd be like, oh, it didn't work out for me. I should feel bad. Boo-hoo. No. Not everything was meant for everybody. And the funny thing is, I knew when I went up there my last day, I knew that was it. Because I'm talking about when I was in the Marines. I'd already gotten discharged, but they still called me back. Because it was a mistake in the system. They'd forgotten to just dot their I's and cross their T's. And I went up there and I knew at the very moment when I told because what really had happened, what I think God wanted me to do was God wanted me to say goodbye to people. I firmly believe that. I never told anybody that. I think God wanted me to say goodbye to people. And I could see, it's hard to describe. When I said goodbye to people I need to say goodbye to, because I assumed that everybody knew because we've been talking about it. There was a couple of people I need to say goodbye to. I could see the spirit just like, it was like I was in their vibration. My vibration started changing, and I started falling out of sync with their vibration. Now, they didn't do anything mean or anything like that, or disrespectful. They just respectfully, we said our goodbyes. And it was time for me to leave. And then when I turned around, I remember I looked at the company. It was like I wasn't in sync with them anymore. It was time for me to move on. It was time for me to go. What I wish I had done was, I should have been like, I'm going to go anyway when I could have gone, instead of just making it so that we're both like, you're uncomfortable, we're uncomfortable. It's not like you're doing anything wrong, but you know you don't want to be here. It was kind of like that. You know you don't want to be here. And I was like, I don't want to be here. You want this provision where you can kind of leave? I was like, yeah, because I don't want to be here. I should have just went and said, hey, serve it on my term, then I'm gone. But the way it happened did end up being better, because then I didn't have those other 2 obligation years afterwards, and that would have been, because of course I can't foresee the future like that. It would have been even worse with some things that happened afterwards. I wouldn't have been able to handle had I had other obligations. So that's another thing. Sometimes things don't work out for you because there's something else coming up that's happening that you need to handle. Okay, and in terms of martial arts, like, one thing I learned by not quitting, even though I probably should have, you think anybody in their right mind would have quit, especially with all, like I said, I was getting colds and stuff like that. It was really physically exhausting, and nobody saw any point to it at all. But I hung in there anyway, and it was practically unattainable, but I still found a way. But now, there's one instructor out there, and I can vouch for me. I'm not saying other people don't, but I know for a fact, because I can only vouch for how I truly feel. I know when I tell you that you can't, if you tell me you couldn't come because of traffic, I know. I know traffic's keeping you up. I know your job pops some stuff on you at the last minute. I know sometimes if it's possible for you to learn online, that you can do it. I know if you're the type that's busy but you like to practice, that yeah, it's possible the student can be given an assignment to work on by themselves and come back and pass. I know that you may be taking a long time. You may choose to take a long time or the longest stretch to be a black belt because you want to balance work and family with your martial arts dreams. And that you're doing it that way not because you're some kind of slacker, but because you still want to have your marriage and your black belt. So you want to be able to be married and raise your children and get a black belt too. So if you say, it may take me 10 years to get this show done, where other people may be able to get it 10 months, and you're cool with the wait, that you'll do it. I know that because I did it. You know, what profit a man to gain a black belt than and lose their spouse? Now, if the spouse is worth losing, spouse is worth. If it's a spouse you should get rid of, she's gonna be gone anyway, for real, for real. You know, you want to not be there to see Junior take his first steps because you were learning how to do high kicks. I mean, come on. I mean, really. You want that? Then you explain that to people. Some of them act like they don't get it. You're just making excuses. Like, no, I'm not just making excuses, player. It's responsibilities out here. I'm the one that's like taking care of the family, and I don't want to just work and not do anything that I enjoy doing. No. But responsibilities do come first. I understand that because ultimately it's really about the journey anyway, and not necessarily the destination. Especially when it comes to something like the martial arts. So, I understand. I understand that sometimes you're not quitting by taking your time, you're taking your time. Now, I did say that I was going to tell you when to quit. It's 2 times I think you should quit. Okay? If you're kind of just trying it out and you really don't like it, but you want to know when should I pull my kids out of this thing when they're really giving it a fair shot, a yellow belt. When they get the yellow belt, if they really tried it at that point and they don't like it, they don't like it. Honestly. When do I think and when did I pull my kids out? Shodan. First degree black belt. But that was something I decided to do, and they jumped on board. And probably because, again, now, if you want to make them stick with it to Shodan, the first degree black belt, you need to do it yourself, parents. Because if you're doing it with them, even if you can't do exactly what their young bodies can do, but if you there and they're there, they kind of not going to want to weasel out. At least my kids didn't. They be looking at me like, I want to quit, but then they see me rolling, they're like, And then I did 2 styles, so then they see me kicking it around, they're like, I ain't going to let this old man show me up, right? You didn't want to let that old man show you up, did you? Uh-huh, you know it. Both of them, son and daughter. They look at it like, ah. So that's another thing. If you really want, especially when we're talking about a martial art, you can get in it too, and, most reasonable instructors realize you're not going to be able to do what a kid can with their body, so don't worry about it. Okay, and here's a little pro tip. If you want to be able to do what a kid can do with their body in a martial arts class, you need to take yoga. Even if all you can do is follow along with yoga on television, do that. It's the stretching and the workouts that's going to help you be able to perform at other level. So, let's say take them out of yellow belt. Nah. Now, if you're one of these cross-training people, I'm going to cross-train this, then I'm going to cross-train that. When's a good time to quit a martial art? Get a Shodan in it. Get a Shodan in it. Especially if it's complementary to your primary discipline. Or if you say, look, I'm not going to get a Shodan, then get the equivalent of what's like a blue belt. If you just truly I just want to round out my ability, I just want to, just complement everything I do. Like with me, if there were a weapon style, who am I kidding? I know I would try to get a black belt in it. I'm lying to myself. I was going to say I'd try to get a blue belt. I'd probably. Because a lot of times, once I get into some of these things, I feel like, hey, I kind of like this. And then I keep going and going until I get a Shodan in it. So, but yeah, it's not necessarily bad to quit. And of course, if your martial arts school is toxic, if your classmates are toxic, if people are getting hurt in your class because of recklessness and they're unlawful or immoral things going on, then yeah, that's an environment to quit. Other than that, you know, just hang with it. See, we live in a society that makes people feel like they have to be constantly chasing after the bring of achievement forever and ever and ever. I personally think that's why they act like they want to get rid of Social Security. I don't think they want old people to feel like they can relax. I think they want you trying to chase after and go after things until the day you die. Not because that's what you want to do, but because they feel like you must. See, that's different. I know I'm going to be doing something like this as long as my body and health allow me to. Okay? But if other people don't want to do that, I feel like they should be free to do that. Just because that is not a path that I would take, I don't think that they should starve to death because they don't want to do it. Okay? That's just how I feel. I think everybody, just like I think everybody should be doing martial arts. But if everybody don't want to do it, I don't say shame on them. I believe in choice. The only time I don't believe in choice is when you're talking about little children, because little children can do things that hurt them, that will hurt them. And sometimes, sadly, not so little children, and sometimes, sadly, not children. Is when people are making self-destructive choices. That's one thing. But other than that, I mean, somebody wants to sit on their couch, watch TV all day Saturday, that's their prerogative. I'm not going to look down on them if they do. I don't think they should look down on me if I don't. So thanks for watching this video. Like, comment, and subscribe. Please share this with people like talk about the martial arts. Yes. Yeah, I subbed the Mommy on the Ground. What of it? Now, I like to read a lot of different things. And that's how you get a lot of different ideas. And that's how you grow. In peace. And as always, thank you for your time. Not done yet. Not done yet. Don't go wild yet.
Where them kicks at? Where them hands? Where them holes? Where them throws? You know what I'm saying?